So I was called by a gentleman who has been renting an in-town apartment to a lady for, I think, close on 7 years. This lady is now 73 years of age, an excellent tenant. And he called me to see would the county council consider purchasing. And I said, well, let me go in and find out. So when I did go into the housing department, I met the official there. And this official was particularly frustrated because while this is a scheme that is published on by the government, the problem for the local authorities is that they're not getting, they might get the monies to purchase, but that's not going to be sufficient because they need additional funding to bring the properties up to standard. So in our case, as you mentioned in your opening, Clare County Council are allocated 4 million for these tenant in situ schemes. And last year we utilised 1.45, so less than half was utilised. And throughout the country, only 2 local authorities drew down on the close to €400 million allocated for the country. So you say to yourself, why is it not working? So my motion is calling for the Minister and his department to review the efficacy urgently of this scheme because it is not working. It is not causing people like this particular lady at the age of 73 to potentially become homeless.
And can we assume that other local authorities are having the same problem, that they identified that they have the funds to purchase the properties, but because they know that they won't be able to provide the funding to fix them up, to renovate them, to do the works that are required, they're not activating the initial funding?
Correct. That's exactly what the statistics are showing, because in my motion I indicate, as I've already stated, that close to 400 million was allocated, 375 million to be precise, in 2025 by the government. But as of the 1st of December 2025, only 2 local authorities have drawn down their full allocation. Begs the question, why have those local authorities done that? Why are the majority of local authorities not doing that? So we need to delve further into the this scheme and whether it needs to be rejigged, completely re-examined as to its efficacy at addressing our homeless crisis, which we all know is a top priority for the government.
And when the scheme was rolled out, we all remember thinking that it was an excellent idea because it enables people in a very vulnerable situation to remain in their property with funding that is provided by the local authority. In that context, would you like to see this given the attention it deserves and for people who are in that vulnerable situation to be supported by it?
Absolutely, because if you look at the social housing list in our county, and I'm sure it's not different from other counties, you have almost 50% now of these people are either single people or very small 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom unit type needs. And the building industry are not providing that kind of accommodation. So in this case of this particular situation, this was a single woman, as I've told you. She would have been quite happy to stay in that property if the council purchased it. So then you say, well, now the council don't, because they have to worry about the additional funding needs to retrofit it, and yet they have a homeless potential demand on the other side of the equation. So it really makes you wonder, could we not purchase and gradually retrofit rather than making people homeless? So I really do hope, and I brought this up with the Minister directly. There was a Fianna Fáil councillors conference in Mullingar recently, and one of the top ministers that spoke, there were 5 leading ministers along with the Taoiseach that led out at that conference, and the Minister did indicate there are problems with this scheme that they need to address. Mainly, I think his message was we need to build new, keep building new. But if that's the case, then let's revisit why these funds are there at all. Do they need to be reallocated, or does this scheme need to be completely reinvented?
So if he's putting the emphasis on building new, did that give you the sense that the tenant in situ scheme isn't getting much attention, or it's not a priority of the Minister?
I'd say that it just needs to be given greater attention to re-examine how efficient it is in today's environment. So I suppose that's what the motion is calling for. It'd be interesting to see what the response is from the department, Sean.
And based on your engagement with constituents and also with the local authority, is there enough public awareness of the scheme? Do people know about it? Do they know that it's a lever at their disposal?
I think any landlord that's thinking of selling their property and they have a tenant in there that might be receiving some social supports, I think it's naturally, like in my case, the gentleman came to me and said, what do you think, Clare, would the council consider purchasing? I said, yeah, I know there's a scheme there, but then when I go in to investigate how that is being delivered, I'm finding it's not really. So I do believe maybe a bit more, especially if it's rejiggered and maybe made more more efficient, then I think maybe a communication message by the government and the local authority around that would be helpful.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. Just finally, Clare, and on a separate note, we heard today that the Grey Gables B&B will be converted into a homeless shelter, homeless accommodation. That is, of course, a property formerly a B&B on Station Road in Ennis. And you wanted to explain what exactly will the property be used for going forward?
Yes, thank you, Sean. So I put down a motion at the Ennis Municipal District this week about that property. It was once thriving, beautiful Grey Gables bed and breakfast, but and it's very centrally located in the town, right there in the corner on Station Road in Ardnagrania. So I put down the motion because I now live on Clon Road and I'm watching everything very closely, and it was very ugly. So I said, what is going on? Because I knew the council had purchased it. So thankfully they've put up nice professional hoarding. It looks more attractive at the moment. And then the response to my motion made it very clear what the council are intending to do on it. It is in the ownership of the council. They have every intention of making it homeless accommodation, but only specifically conditioned where the occupants will be women and children. So it will be specific for those needs. What will happen now is the Department of Housing are at part 2 in the application process to fund the project. That's likely to come within the matter of days. Then by September, the County Council will come into the County Councillors and ask for permission to construct a brand new building on the site. And that will likely break ground in January of 2027 and take about a year and a half to build. And again, just to reiterate to the public, please do not be concerned. I'll be watching this very carefully. It was always the case that whatever materialises there will be homeless accommodation specifically conditioned where the occupants will be women and children.
And you'd imagine that'll be broadly welcomed given the strain on homeless services? Absolutely,
and indeed it's entirely directly connected to the first topic that we discussed there, because in that case you had a 73-year-old single woman potentially being made homeless. So yes, they're all connected, and it will be a wonderful facility because it's right in the centre of the town. So for the children and women who will occupy that space, they're going to have the convenience and ease of in-town living.